The wonderful thing about being a creator is that you are in charge of your entire schedule, you are in charge of your career, but the burden is you are in charge of your entire career. What you put in is what you get out.
Explain to me the science behind why people, and specifically creators, are focusing on the negative.
Our brains are not wired for happiness, our brains are wired for survival.
What do you feel is the biggest kind of root cause for inconsistent posting? Welcome back to a very special episode of Creator Method, and I see this smile at the opposite side of the table, and I'm very happy to welcome Jessica Weiss to the podcast. Jessica, welcome. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you so much for having me.
You know what? This I'm very excited about this episode. Jessica is our senior coach at Creator Method. You are literally like our full-time senior coach. And so I'm really excited about that. Usually these episodes are with members,
right?
That we bring on, but this is something that, I mean, as soon as you graciously agreed to come work with us, this was something that was in my mind to do. So I'm going to jump into your bio. Today I'm joined by Jessica Weiss, one of the leading voices in happiness, creativity, and sustainable high performance. And to all the Creator Method members, now you understand why I was so eager to retain Jessica. She holds a BA from the University of Pennsylvania and an MBA from Columbia University. Jessica is a renowned keynote speaker and TEDx presenter and the author of Happiness Works, The Science of Thriving at Work, a book that breaks down a proven framework for overcoming burnout, disconnection, and pressure in modern life. For over 15 years, Jessica has coached leaders inside some of the most prestigious organizations in the world, including American Express, Johnson & Johnson, and Coca-Cola. Her work blends positive psychology, neuroscience-based performance tools, and real-world leadership experience to help people find clarity, confidence, and fulfillment without sacrificing success. She teaches organizations and individuals how to unblock creativity, build resilience, and create environments where people perform because they want to, not because they feel pressure to. Today, she brings that same expertise to Creator Method as our senior coach, helping hundreds of creators navigate the emotional demands of growth, break the cycle of pressure and self-doubt, and build careers that are sustainable for the long term. Jessica is the perfect person for this conversation about why creators feel stuck, overwhelmed, or inconsistent, and how to turn that pressure into clarity, confidence, and real momentum. Jessica, that was a long one. That was longer than usual because it takes a long time to describe all the work that you've done.
That was quite an intro. I appreciate it.
Well, listen, I was so excited when we crossed paths on social media, when we kind of put it out to the universe of social media that we are looking for someone to come in and to really formalize our curriculum, to increase the amount of group calls that we do from 1 a week to now you're doing 5 a week. Yep. And first of all, I'm going to want to hear all about that. But before we do any of that, I want you to sign your book that I remember when I told you, I said, I ordered your book on Amazon, and you said, Gary, you didn't have to do that. And I said, no, like the whole point is I want to support you. I actually want to buy a book.
That was very sweet. So, and I really appreciate it.
No, of course. Listen, that was the book that I bought, but this is the book that you sent, but you forgot to sign it. So I'm going to ask you to please sign this book of yours.
My pleasure. One day it'll be worth tons of money.
Well, I think it's already worth tons of money, but what's interesting about this is that shortly after you published this book, you were featured in Forbes magazine.
Yes.
So tell me quickly, first of all, tell me quickly about this book. I want to learn, before we jump into all of the work that you're doing with Creator Method, tell me about this book and tell me what it's about.
Okay, so the book, I talk about happiness and I talk about happiness at work, but I say that I talk about happiness in a way that's different than kind of what mainstream people are used to when they hear happiness. So for me, I'm like a New Yorker. I'm a terrible meditator. I'm all of those things that one would associate with a happiness expert is what I am not.
Okay.
So what the book is a really tangible framework, 5 steps to achieving happiness at work. And what I love about the method is, first of all, you don't have to do all 5 steps. You can take whatever steps appeal to you. It's a method that if you hate your current job, we have solutions to help you fix your situation that you're currently in. If you want to switch your situation altogether, we have methods that you can switch your situation altogether. So it's a really tangible, practical, strategic book based on science, all about helping people find happiness at work. And here's the secret. When you find happiness at work, you usually find happiness in life.
Okay. It makes a lot of sense to me, and I think I know the answer to this, but I want to hear your answer. Like, what is the benefit? It sounds obvious and it may sound like a stupid question, but what is the benefit of finding happiness at work?
Right. So, and it is obvious, but I feel like it's not really discussed. When people are happy at work, they're more productive, they're more creative, they enjoy their work more, they have more sustainability in what they are doing, they make more money.
Yeah.
So it's one of these things that it affects literally every single moment of your day from beginning to end.
You know, and I can tell you from the perspective of an employer, because I've probably now in the probably almost 30 years of being an entrepreneur, I probably employed close to maybe about 600 or 700 people over time. And I can tell you that I sense a complete, difference between people who are happy at work and who are happy to come in, and just the attitude and the way it reflects on their work and the way it reflects on their advancement at work is massive. So not only, to your point, when you say they make more money, they make more mone as a result and over time of bringing this attitude and the way it's projected to the entrepreneur and who's running the company. And I was just having a discussion recently with Ariel about the difference between, throughout my career there have been team members who are part of the problem and team members who are part of the solution. And judging by your thesis, I believe that people who are happy coming to work and just happy overall in their life are always going to be part of the solution. And I think just like in your personal life, I became kind of a little, what's the word I'm looking for? The word I'm looking for is when you, not that you don't care, but ruthless. The word is ruthless. I became ruthless just in life about people who are part of the solution versus part of the problem. And I cut people out, not professionally, but just even personally. When you're friends, and it's if you're not I'm doing my best to contribute to you, to your life, to your happiness. If you're not doing the same for me, what is this? Why is this relationship
No, I agree
happening?
completely.
Tell me about your path to become this expert in happiness, and specifically in happiness around the work, around people's work.
So I followed a pretty traditional path to begin with, right? So I have an MBA. While I got an MBA, I also became a certified executive coach. But when you get an MBA, there's kind of a pre-prescribed path. People generally go into finance or they go into consulting. So I went into consulting, and that is where I started to work with all these major global brands. And the work that I did there was pretty much understanding what makes certain cultures thrive and what makes other cultures die, right? And it was really a lot of work around innovation and creativity, because the bottom line in corporate America is, how can you help me make more money? So how can you help me make more money? You can help me innovate, you can help me be more creative, and you can help me grow in ways that I wasn't growing before. So I did a lot of coaching, I did a lot of team coaching, and the work that I loved was working one-on-one with people. And what the theme that kept coming up was, Jessica, I love doing this kind of work, the work that you bring into the office, right? The innovation, the creativity. That's when I'm really happy at work. How can I do more of that work? And I was like, okay, there's something here, because I could physically see the energy of people when they would get excited about their work and get happy at work. And for me, I felt exactly the same. There were parts of my day where I was like, I love this work, and other parts of my day where I was like, I hate this work. How do I do more of the work that I love? So eventually what happened was I worked for a big consulting agency. I left, I went out on my own, and then I was really able to define my own dream job, right? So people love to say, oh, I found my dream job. I found my dream job. My big learning is you never find your dream job, you create your dream job. So I created my dream job, right? I love public speaking. I speak all the time. I love happiness. I wrote a book about happiness. I love coaching. I created a coaching practice. So for me, in that way, I try to practice what I preach.
You recognized burnout. That's something that you talk about at length. And I guess the question I want to ask around burnout is, number one, how you can avoid it, but specifically I want to dive a little deeper into the work that we have to do that we don't love. So, for myself, at this stage in my career, at my age, I have the kind of luxury, and I've given myself that space to actually hire people to do the things that, quite frankly, I'm not good at, which is most things, and the things that I just don't want to do, that other people may find joy in. So what would you tell someone, and I guess I'm throwing you something of a curveball, because I'd like to hear how you address the parts of people's jobs that they don't love, that they have to do. So as whether you're an executive at any level or an employee at any level, or whether you're an entrepreneur, there are going to be things that you do that don't make you happy. So how do you achieve that happiness knowing that you can't 100% of the time only do the stuff that you love?
Right, of course. And I think that there needs to be a dose of reality put on everything, right? Because no, you're not going to be happy 100% of the time. And happiness at work does not mean that you're happy 100% of the time. What I talk about when I talk about happiness at work, whether it's about creators or entrepreneurs or executives at big companies, it's about creating lasting and sustainable happiness. So it's not like waking up and in a good mood and I love every second. It's putting structures in place that ensure that you can achieve whatever it is that you want to achieve to ultimately give you that happiness at work. So when I talk to creators, this is something we talk about all the time.
Okay. So, and that's like a really nice segue into content creation. There is that dose of reality, but with creators, there's something a little different here, because in the course of a day, if let's say you're in, like when you're working for some of these companies that you've worked with, like with Amex and Coca-Cola, and you have executives there, they're going into meetings necessarily. They're in and out of meetings. They're doing things that they need to do. But with a creator, it's like you're jumping on set. You're jumping to host a podcast. You're having to put on a smile and do a trending dance, or you have to do a monologue when you just came out of something that you just hated doing. Yeah. So how does a creator kind of manage that? Because I think it's different for creators in the sense that if I'm a corporate executive going into like a P&L meeting and I'm in a bad mood, it's
the whole business doesn't fall apart.
Yeah. Whereas it's interesting because even for myself, when talking with members of the team who manage my schedule, I say like, don't schedule me into heavy meetings, like heavy operational or like or logistics meetings before a podcast, because I don't want to go in that frame of mind. So I need to create. So how do you, like, what's your suggestion? Like, now that you've been working with creators for a couple of months now with Creator Method, like, how are you reconciling this?
So this is, to me, and your point you just said, like you have to go into the podcast in the right headspace. This to me is an energy issue, and it's a gift and a burden for creators, right? So the wonderful thing about being a creator is that you are in charge of your entire schedule. You are in charge of your career. What you put in is what you get out, which is fantastic. But the burden is you are in charge of your entire career, and what you put in is what you get out. So I always say that since you are the person driving the ship, burnout tends to be an issue of energy and depletion, right? And it's critically important for creators that they're able to be artistic and creative, right?
Absolutely.
If you cannot be artistic and creative, you cannot do your job. And you will never, ever be able to be artistic and creative if you're depleted and burnt out. So what I say is, on those moments when you are feeling it, when you got it, when you are energized, whether it's a Friday or a Monday or a Wednesday at 9 a.m., when you are going to be feeling it. That's when you lean in and you do as much of that kind of work as possible, right? So you have to drive your own car here. You have to be in charge of your own energy and when your creativity spikes. I've done like audits with people to help them understand when that creative juices flow. Like for me, I'm a morning person. Anything that happens in the morning, I have loads of ideas. I can do it. Other people, they come alive at night. These are all important things for you to know in terms of you're an artist. You want to get to your creativity. So get in touch with that energy, understand it, and make it work for you.
Yeah. For Valeria, I've been through so many iterations over the last 9 years of her peaks and valleys.
Yeah.
And when it was happening earlier in her career, like even like 4 or 5 years ago, and she would just hit that wall and she would crash. A couple of things. So now she's been through enough of those cycles where she recognizes early and she starts taking preventative measures. So now what I find with Valeria, she's a lot more even.
Yeah.
Right? Because her type A, like succeed at all cost personality would drive her to the point where she wasn't taking the precautionary measures that I think all creators should take right now. And then the other thing is that what I advise creators when I'm on my one, like I do one-on-ones, you do one-on-ones, and what I advise creators is that I ask them, like, how much time are you budgeting on a weekly basis for replenishment? Yeah. And like, and they're asking, what does that even mean? Yeah. Right? Because a lot of people are coming from the corporate world, whether they're like just kind of traditional like influencers, or whether they're entrepreneurs who are now understanding that they have to create content to be the face of their business in a more like systematic way. Yeah. they're looking at this and they're not actually budgeting for the replenishing things. Like for me, I ride my motorcycles, right? I spend time with my kids. Just today, you were in the car when the kids called and we went for pizza afterwards. So those are kind of the things that I do to regenerate, and then I come back as a better creator. And Valeria does those things. So that's kind of, what I tell people is that this guilt that they feel for resting, and even today, like Ariel and I, like we're working, and I'll literally, like, I feel like tired. I'll close my eyes for 15 minutes and I'll lie down. And kind of before I got into content creation, I would be riddled with guilt for taking a break in the middle of the day.
Of course.
But I knew that by putting that 15 minutes of, just because like I didn't sleep well last night, and by putting that 15 minutes in, I knew I'd show up better on this podcast. So, and that's what it is. But a lot of creators don't understand that. They're still working in the old world.
No, 100%. And I always say, exactly, I say garbage in, garbage out. So if you are feeling like you have nothing to give, you will produce nothing good. So what's the point? So, and I love that Valeria has like realized it's not success at all costs. It's success when you can do it at all costs, right? It's not, because ultimately what you'll create is going to be garbage at the end of the day. So you've got to build that in.
What she's trying to avoid is, and she already has a name for it, she's trying to avoid going into autopilot mode. Because at this point, once you kind of, and even at early stages, you have to be consistent with the content creation. You have to be consistent with the output. And that consistency requires you to like always be creating. But if you're not replenishing, then eventually you just go into autopilot mode where you just become monotonous. And the thing is that what content creators don't understand, they really don't understand how the audience will pick up on that. You talk about energy. When Valeria or any other creator goes into autopilot mode because they're not replenishing themselves in a sufficient manner, it shows in the data. It immediately shows in the data. You can have concepts like Valeria's outfit of the days, or certain people have monologues that they're always hitting, but when you go into autopilot because you've been neglecting yourself, you think that you're but people feel it, and people feel it on a subconscious. Like when I say people, I mean the audience. They'll feel it on a subconscious level. Like on a level where they don't like. They're not connecting.
They're just not connecting, because it's not authentic. It's not genuine. Like you're just dialing it in.
But it's a negative spiral, because what happens is the creator isn't understanding what happens. Like I did this content like a month ago and it was hitting, and now it's not hitting. Why is it not hitting? And when they look at the content, they don't see that they're not there. They're there physically, but they're not there. Right? And so that replenishment is really important. I want to switch gears a little, and I want to talk about why the shift from coaching, corporate coaching into creator method, and in general, like entering into because it's part of a larger conversation about the shift from, I think, kind of the traditional world of business into what's going on, with content creation. We were fortunate enough to get involved in 2017. Not that there was an advantage to starting earlier. I believe that there's just as much potential. I believe there's more potential now, because it's the demand for content is so much higher. But what was your shift from being like in this like super traditional coaching world, coaching executives at very high levels, to now saying, okay, I want to switch gears, and I want to work with like this organization where you're talking to creators, and you're talking. What's interesting is that you went from coaching CEOs, like super high level people, and not to say that the people aren't super high level, but they're at different stages in their career. So we have creators who you're coaching who are literally at the beginning. They're younger. They don't have the tenure that some of the people have that you've been coaching. And now, but you're also coaching the more senior people too. I guess, tell me about this transition in your logic from transitioning this way.
So I am someone who's always been fascinated by like how businesses get built, right? What is it that makes this business successful versus this business successful? And I've been watching like the influencer world for a while, but just really from like an observer point of view, like, oh, there's something here that's really interesting to me, because the idea of building something from nothing has always been fascinating, right? And I, at my heart, as a human, am also that way. I come from a family of entrepreneurs. I am naturally an entrepreneur. So all of this is completely fascinating to me. So as I was seeing this like basically segment of the economy blow up, I was like, okay, there's something here that I need to learn about. Like, I need to understand what this business is. I'm also fascinated by the fact that it's one of the few industries in the world where females dominate, right? Which is fantastic. Absolutely. So for me, all of our members, except for maybe 2 men, are women. And those men are fantastic. But all of that together was like, it was like a magnet to me. It was people wanting to start a business. It was a sector of the economy that's exploding. And for me as a human, I always like to be constantly learning, and this is a new thing for me, right? So coming from whether it was the world of finance or, corporate America, this working with entrepreneurs has always been something that I've done, but not particularly in this sector. So like personally, it was very rewarding for me. So that's kind of how I got there.
How do you see the evolution of business in the sense that when I talk to venture capitalists, when I talk to private equity, when I talk to even retail distribution, they're now prioritizing creator-led brands because of these built-in communities at this point, right? Creators are no longer seen as just like a list, right, of followers. They're actually seen as very highly engaged communities. How are you seeing that evolution? Did you kind of see that writing on the wall before you kind of switched gears and joined us?
So I've been watching it for a while, and at first it was, it kind of, when you look at the business from the outside, it seemingly looks much more superficial than it is, right? It looks like outfits and it looks like makeup, right? And then over the years, you've seen that it's gone deeper and deeper, right? Where there's brands and there's communities and there's content creators who can influence people to buy untold amounts of things, right? Who can sell out things in Nordstrom or wherever it is. So I think that the evolution as an observer has been super interesting to watch, because I'm like, okay, this is clearly not about outfits or influencers in the wild. These are women who are creating real businesses, and I want to understand what it is that makes it tick. And when I coach creators now, I'm like, you guys are building a business, so we're going to treat it like a business, and we're going to grow it like a business. And that's something that I think was an epiphany for me, and it's something that I love sharing with them.
Amazing. A lot of the times it's interesting because you're the first person that, from a professional capacity, I'm so excited to work with you because you come from this, 15 years of professional coaching. I come from, decades of marketing and like internet marketing, and specifically work now in the last 9 years working with, one creator with my wife, and then in the last year and a half doing a deep dive with the hundreds of creators we work with now. And there are certain kind of consistencies that I'm seeing in where the blockers are for creators. And I want to dive into that a little more, but I want to hear the science behind it, because you understand the science behind it. Fear, pressure, inconsistency, imposter syndrome. These are all things that I'm seeing right across the board. And so when I talk with creators, it's interesting because when I speak with a creator, again, I was just saying I'm excited to work with you because I feel like you're a true colleague in that sense, and I really can connect with you on that level. With creators, they can look at their entire persona, like who they are, right, as a person, because that translates to their personal brand. And they will list to me all of the things that they feel are their shortcomings.
Right.
Their lack of formal education, their accent, their lack of experience, their lack of knowledge in their chosen subject matter, like you name it. And so the imposter syndrome becomes just rampant. And what I find is, like with me, like my superpower, I want to get to the neuroscience of it, because I'll tell you kind of how I look at it. When I look at it, and I just break things down in a really simple way, when they explain all of this to me, I ask them to tell me the story of their life, like in my one-on-ones. And when I get the story of their life, I find out, you immigrated from when you were like 16. Who did you immigrate with? By myself. Oh, not with your parents. Oh, that was pretty scary. Like that's a real story of resilience. So I'll find those moments or, something that they did, and I'll really drill into that. And so I'll expand on the positives. I'll expand on the fact that they've accomplished these amazing things. So while they're focused on the negatives, and it's funny because they're trying to be creators. At the same time, all they focus on is the negatives. And they're talking themselves out of it. And then what I do is I flip all of that and I really focus in on the strengths, and I say, let's talk about that. Let's really do a deep dive into that. I want to know from you, to me, I just look at it as like typical like just insecurity. But there's a science behind it. Explain to me the science, the neuroscience behind why people as a whole, and specifically creators are focusing on the negative. They're focusing, and that's all they think about. And it takes someone like me to pull out the positives and really drill into it. What's the science behind this?
So there's a bunch of different things that are going on here. First of all, there's been research that says when you focus on your strengths rather than focusing on your weaknesses, that is a key to happiness. But the human condition, we are conditioned to focus on the negative, right? We have a negativity bias. So great stuff can happen, and all you're going to do in your brain is focus on the negative. And that we were designed that way for for safety purposes. So if so in other words, if something harmful is happening, if the lions are chasing you, with the cavemen, our brains are designed to focus on the negative to save lives, right? That no longer serves a purpose.
Correct.
So now we're left with that negativity bias, that fight or flight, that save yourself at all costs, which means you go into protection mode as opposed to going into growth mode. So our brains are wired for this. Our brains are not wired for happiness. Our brains are wired for survival. So there's something tangible that we all have to overcome in order to get there. So all of those excuses, all of the fears, a big one that I hear is I'm a perfectionist. I'm a perfectionist, so I can't do it because I'm a perfectionist. I'm telling you, saying you're a perfectionist as a creator is not a positive. No. So there's a lot of perfectionism, right? And all of it, the procrastination, all of it comes down to they're afraid to actually do it, right? They're fearing something. But our brains are designed that way. Now, once you know that that's what's going on, then you put structures into place to overcome it.
Yeah. What I'm finding is that what's really interesting is that the part of this process that they're scared of is such a small part of what it takes to be a content creator. And I see this all the time, that the creators that I work with, and the creators I'm sure like we work with the same people, is that the value is already there. Like they already have knowledge, they already have certain skills. So now it's just a matter of developing the skill set of communicating that value.
Yep.
Right? It's not about finding the value, which is really interesting. And it's because with Valeria, when she was 26 years old, 9 years ago, for her, she had the value as like, she was great, like great aesthetic. She had just gotten out of college for holistic nutrition. So because she already had like 8 years experience modeling in the fashion industry, so she understood like lighting and cameras and aesthetics, she had just finished her course on or like her program on healthy food. Like she was really just able to concentrate, and she understood this kind of intrinsically, that she was now concentrating on developing the skill of communicating the value she already had.
Yep.
Whereas a lot of creators, I believe, they get this negativity from thinking, I don't have value, so I actually have to create the value.
Yeah.
But just like their life experience, their ability to discuss topics that most people don't know. Like for you can sit down and you already have the value. So right now your job is to communicate that value, but you already understand the psychology of happiness and everything.
Well, that's the joy of coaching, right? Because when you help somebody unlock that, that's the gift of coaching. And I've said this to you before, selfishly, I love coaching because it makes me feel so good to know that I've helped somebody else, right? So when you can flip the switch for somebody like that, that's the gift, right? So sometimes all you need is one person to say one sentence, and that unlocks the whole thing. And that is the gift of coaching.
Yeah. Let's talk about stress for a second. There's different types of stress, right? So there's stress that helps.
Yep.
And I see this across the board, not just with content creation. Like even for myself, there's stress that helps, that pushes me forward.
Yep.
And then there's stress that is like debilitating. It shuts me down. I have to take a break. Tell me about kind of these different stresses and how do we kind of push the ones that shut us down, and how do we not let the ones that push us forward overtake us and become negative?
When people hear the word stress, I think it's immediately a negative. And I like to reframe stress exactly as you said it. Not all stress is negative. Some stress is really good. Stress is a signal that you care. Right? You care about something. That's why you're concerned. That's why you're worried. It's work that you actually care about. Now, what a gift that is to be given something to care about, right? For me, there's nothing worse than going into a job and being completely apathetic and not caring at all and just walking out the door at the end of the day and having nothing to show for it, right? So here, when you feel that good stress, that means that you care. I want you to lean into that. So I feel like creators make this mistake of sometimes that anxiety, or I should really say that excitement, is sometimes it's a great thing. Like it's a motivator. It's almost like it's gasoline that you're putting in the car to make it go forward. Now, the bad stress is real stress. And that goes back to our conversation earlier. That will lead to depletion, to burnout, to all of that. So you need to kind of understand the difference. There's good stress that's going to motivate you, and there's bad stress that's going to pull you down. And it's a question of recognizing the difference. And no one can really tell you that. You have to understand how that feels.
I want to know how you coach people through this. They have this like fear. I want to say it's a strange fear because it's counterintuitive. They want to be creators.
Yeah.
They want to amplify their voice using social media, using this, wonderful technology that has now connected humanity in profound ways. but they have a fear of like being seen.
Yeah.
So
yeah, that's a huge one.
Well, it's interesting, right? Because it's such a contradiction to me.
Yeah.
Is like when I'm talking to like our members and just creators in general, and they come and they say like they know that they want to do this, they have this burning desire to,
Yeah.
but they have this fear of being seen. How are you talking with creators about getting over this
Yeah.
fear of being seen?
So there's a number of different ways, and that's one of the most. I'm afraid to go on camera. I don't want to talk on camera. I get so nervous. I freeze whenever I go on camera. Do I have to go on camera? That's every day, multiple times a day. In my coaching, I always say, I'm going to push you as far as you want to be pushed, right? So I will never take you to a place that feels uncomfortable or wrong, but I will push you to the edge of the place that feels good.
I'm a little different than you. I don't mind them feeling uncomfortable because I think that it's through that discomfort is where, just like going to the gym, it's not comfortable to be in pain, right?
Right. So I say like, and I think that you're kind of misinterpreting it. I would never put people in the red zone, but I put them in that discomfort zone, right? I never put them in the like sirens are blaring. And in order to push people into that like discomfort zone, the way that I see it is you kind of need to give people like a step, right? They need significantly fewer steps than they think they need. Mm-hmm. But if you tell them right away, no, you must go on camera and you must talk and you say it and you probably get a different reaction. When I say it, I have to do a little bit more of a convincing. So I'll say, okay, let's start this an easy way. Let's do voiceovers. Okay, so voiceovers, you're now bringing your voice into it and you're telling a story. Okay, you're not speaking, but you're sort of getting there.
Voiceovers is a step to monologues.
And then I say, if what you want to do here is to, and this is usually what it is, what you want to do here is monetize your Instagram. If what you want to do here is grow your business. If what you want to do here is create something that people come to because of you, then I need to see you and I need to hear your voice and I need to see your eyes because I need to trust you. That's the ultimate thing that we need with content creation. Yeah. So slowly I get people there.
Yeah, you know what I do? So I do it. I'm going to challenge you a little bit because what I do is in my calls, I'm trying to understand why.
Yeah.
Tell me why. Tell me why you want to do this.
Right.
And they'll tell me a little bit, and then I'll dig deeper. Is it because like it's like I want to create impact? Okay, why do you want to create impact? And then we get to these. I usually get to something like personal that happened to them that they want to save other people from experiencing something negative that they experienced, or a lot of the times it's something financial, and they want to create financial freedom for themselves. And we have some single moms on as our members, and when I get to the why, I'm just like, tell me why. And there's like, listen, like I want to create financial freedom for my kids. Right. And so when I get to the why, it's like we have this one member, she's great. We were trying to restructure her why in terms of like the value she's trying to provide to women. And she's like she's super fit. She's 40 years old, and she'll know if she's watching this, she'll know who I'm talking about. And she's 40 years old, and she's like, I'm trying to figure out like my why in terms of the value that I'm offering, to the audience. And again, she's super fit. And I said, well, what are you trying to do? She goes, I'm trying to get women to be healthy. And I'm trying to, like, it's really important for me that women are like healthy. And I said, but why is it important that women are healthy? Is it for aesthetics? She goes, no. I go, tell me why else. And she was kind of struggling. And I said, well, I'll give you a reason like why it's important for me. And I try to tie it back to my own personal life and things that I experienced. And I say, I train and I try to be as healthy as possible because I don't want my kids dealing with like a sick old person who's their father, because that's just like, unfortunately I had to deal with that with my folks who are now passed away, but that was terrible for me. And so when I said to her, like, is that a reason why? Maybe you're doing it so that your kids don't have this negative experience of dealing with you when you're going to be much older and this and that. And she goes, yeah, that's exactly why. And it motivated her. And it's funny because when she found that why, and then further in the conversation when it was like, but I'm concerned about showing myself here. And I'm like, but look at your why. How important is your why that you're going to do this for your kids, and you're going to have a community that you're now saving all of these women and all of their children from this negative experience. Like, how many thousands or hundreds of thousands or millions of people will you be helping? And then I compare it to what they're afraid of, and I'm like, this fear, and I would tell her, like, this fear that you have, or this reason why you can't do something, how is that in comparison to this goal that you're going to achieve with millions of people being positively affected? And she was like, Yeah, you're right. Anyway.
Yeah, I do it similarly. We do it similarly, but we have very different styles, right? So I'll do the same thing. I'm like, well, what's your North Star? Like, what's the reason that you're doing all this? Like, if that's the reason that, if you want to create a new business and build a new business, does it matter whether someone sees you on camera and thinks that you look foolish? Do you care?
No.
Are you ever going to even have that conversation? Does it matter? What's more important here? Building your business. So we do it. We have very different styles, but we ultimately get to the same place.
Yeah, no, I agree. And you know, I want to kind of pat myself on the back with that particular creator grew by like 40,000 followers in 1 month, and it wasn't even me. Like, it was just from that initial session. So, but again, it's a consistent thing. Like with creators, that they need this like reason beyond their own. It's interesting. They need the reason beyond their own personal benefit, like their personal financial benefit, or any other benefit. They need to know that they're creating impact and change with these communities that they're creating. So when you're talking with creators, like, what do you feel is the biggest kind of root cause for inconsistent posting, which we know is a no-no in content creation?
Yeah. I think the biggest root cause of inconsistent posting is this perfectionism thing.
I agree.
So it's this idea that every single thing has to be perfect, and I need to spend 25 minutes crafting a 3-sentence caption, because if it's not perfect, and then what winds up happening is they don't even put it up altogether, right? Or better yet, they post it, and then in the first hour that it's up, it's not doing what it should be doing. So now, oh my God, should I delete it? And what if people see it? And and another thing that ties into this exactly is when people take away views, right? So they don't want us to see how many views they're getting, which
they remove the view, like the ability for people to see it.
Which ties exactly into this idea about perfectionism. So that is something that everybody has their personal blockers into perfectionism, and imposter syndrome ties directly into it. And the thing about imposter syndrome is it's really not a syndrome at all. Imposter syndrome affects every single person on the planet. Yeah. I'm sure you've had imposter syndrome.
Yeah, I still do.
Right. I've had imposter syndrome. The truth is, every time you do something new, you're going to have imposter syndrome, but that's not a reason to stop you from doing amazing things. So the imposter syndrome and the perfectionism are the two things that kick consistency's butt. And consistency is the key to the whole thing. So when I work with creators, a big thing of what I do, and we get, I work with creators over a period of time and a number of sessions. So a big thing of what I do is accountability, and I'm a person who's going to hold them to what they said that they were going to do.
Talk to me about the accountability, because I find that, like, for example, when I go and I have like a personal trainer in the gym, realistically, I already know everything there is to do.
Of course.
Right. However, I do need that help to make sure I continue doing it correctly. And from a larger degree, like, I need that help knowing that person is waiting for me on the certain days of the week.
Of course.
And I'm there. And it's also like, it's the accountability, but it's also the progression to make sure, like, I'm doing, I'm challenging myself.
Yeah.
So there's two things about it, right? One is the accountability to make sure they actually do the things that they promise themselves and that they do.
Yeah. And
it's also like continuing to level them up. But from an accountability perspective, what are some of the things that you see are an effective tool to keep? Let's assume that they don't work with you, or they're just trying to do it on their own. What's an effective way for a creator to keep themselves accountable for the purpose of not only being consistent, but being consistent with a certain, like, level of output, like quality of output?
Yeah. So the first thing that we talk about when we talk about consistency to me is really about, it's really about a structure, right? You're putting a structure in place, and consistency is essentially a muscle. I've heard you say this too. Like, this is not something that comes naturally to anybody. This is something that you have to build and you have to get better at. So what I do in my sessions is we create an entire plan around consistency and consistent posting. But it really begins with this one question of, what's the bare minimum that you are going to be willing to do in order to achieve your goal? Now, it's not bare minimum. It's what's the bare minimum that you are willing to do in order to achieve your goal. So if you tell me that you are willing to post 3 times a week, then the question becomes, is that the bare minimum to achieve your goal? So I always say, let's keep our eye on the prize, right? So if you don't keep your eye on the prize, then you will fall off every time you feel tired or unmotivated, or it's just not striking you that day. So I think it's structure, I think it's mindset, and I think it's keeping your eye on the prize.
Okay.
And then, of course, if you meet with me, it's much better.
Yes, no, of course. Let's talk about metrics for a second. Metrics and data. To me, this is such a double-edged sword, because I feel that creators are not using metrics to their advantage. They're using it to their disadvantage.
Yeah.
They're using metrics, like all the analytics in terms of like views and engagement data and follower counts. They're using it as a way to measure their self-worth.
Yep.
And if the data is not hitting on any given day, they get depleted. Like I see it all the time.
Yep.
Like, and quite frankly, like I'm much better at it than for myself. Like I literally don't care what my views are anymore.
Yeah.
And by keeping my eye on the macro,
Yeah.
thinking like, what is this going to look like in 5-10 years? I
Yeah.
find that's an effective tool for me.
Yeah, me too.
But I find that with creators, the creators that we work with, they're so focused on literally like,
Yep.
they have so many ups and downs in any given day. What's your take on what's going on right now in this like world of social media that specifically has to do with being able to see the data in such real time?
Yeah, I think it's a hindrance. I think that every creator needs to be an artist, right? They need to be creative and not a data scientist.
Yeah.
And I think that, frankly, leaning into that data and taking a negative view of it is feeding into that entire excuse kind of paradigm, right? So if the metrics are not giving you exactly the information that you want, or aren't giving you the reward or the dopamine hit that you come to expect, then you're going to let that derail you altogether. Yeah. And I'm going to throw one of your quotes back at you when you say social media is a personal business, but don't take it personally, right? So and this is what I coach all of my creators, whether it's on the group calls or on one-on-one, you guys are artists. Leave the data for now. We'll have a discussion about the data, but not now. You're artists. I want you to create beautiful, compelling content. I want you to have communities that believe in you and trust you. That's what's to focus on. To focus on the numbers is just, you're feeding into the, I'm a perfectionist, I'm fearful. That to me, it feels, I'm sorry, like an excuse.
Yeah, no, it is an excuse. I look at data as a dashboard.
Yep.
And I use the analogy of driving a car. If any of us who drive cars were to only look at the dashboard of our vehicles, to look at consistently be measuring our speed and our mileage and the engine temperature and all that, but we actually didn't look at the road, it wouldn't be long before we crashed into a telephone pole. Yeah. Right. And so that's
a good analogy.
Well, that's what I feel is happening.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah, that's what I feel is happening is like creators are constantly looking at data to such a degree. When you say don't become a data scientist, I agree with you wholeheartedly because anybody can count data. Anybody can look at views and say, is that high or is that low? But not everybody can be an artist. Right. And so what happens is people are so focused on analyzing data. And it's interesting because the questions I get overwhelmingly from creators is, how do I analyze the data?
Yeah, me too.
And I say to them, why aren't you asking me how to become a better artist?
I know. That's what I say.
How do you motivate yourself? Yeah. How do you put yourself in a situation where you're
stimulating your creativity.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah, you're looking at the wrong thing.
They're looking at the wrong thing.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Focus on what you can control, not on what you can't control. And this is a creative endeavor. I feel like content creation is a creative endeavor and you need to feed that creativity. I mean, Valeria talks about creativity and fueling her creativity and doing things that keep it inspiring and interesting. Yeah. That's something that everybody has to do.
I found has been like a big shift for me creatively, both in business and as a creator, and something that Valeria always did naturally, but I only applied it to myself now, and I'm a little not embarrassed, but I wish I would have done it sooner because I think we'd all be further ahead if I would have done it. Is really leading with impact. And what I feel like with a lot of the creators that we work with, they're so focused on, even like creators at massive scale, they're so continuously focused on driving the financial data and the views and everything, but everything that really maps back to the monetization. But they're not trying to create impact. And what I found with my career, and this is something that I've been talking to creators about, is that delay that financial gratification, because in reality, when you flip it and you lead with impact versus leading with the monetization or any of the data, then the impact actually, the data that follows creating impact is so much stronger than leading first with the monetization and the data there. So that's something that I like to talk about with creators.
Well, content creation is a long-term game, and I think that that's also another fallacy. Everybody thinks, okay, I'm here, I'm doing it, and now I'm going to get paid, and this is a long-term game. Like this is you got to do this for a while in order to really reap like the true depth of the reward.
Yeah. How much of like a creator's success do you think is, and I think we've talked about this now, but I really want to kind of, cross this cross this T and dot this I. How much of creator success do you believe is based on mindset versus, I think the strategy is important.
Me too.
And the mechanics of what we train people to do and what people are figuring out for themselves is highly important. How much of this is mindset and personal development?
Have you ever heard of the 80-20 rule? Right?
Well, vaguely, yeah. But
so the 80-20 rule is whatever you spend, oh God, I'm going to get it wrong. 20% of your work is what you're going to spend 80% of your time. So I'm going to take this and bastardize it a little bit, but I think that 80% of your work as a content creation is about mindset and creativity, and 20% at best is about the structure, is about the process, and is about the strategy.
But most creators will default the other way around.
Exactly.
Because it's easier to apply systems than to chase this like enigmatic, how do I become a better artist situation.
Yes. Yeah. So that's my belief.
In your coaching, how are you getting creators, like how are you finding that balance between like the organizational part, the scheduling part, the tech stacks that they need to learn and they need to use? How do you combine that with the artistry? Because I want to elaborate on the question a little bit more, because these are two separate sides of the brain. Mm-hmm. Like for me, like I mentioned, Valeria and I, we have the luxury of, retaining highly organized, super smart people to allow us, as time goes by, to concentrate more and more on the art. And the art seems to be fueling our growth. But that's a luxury that, even creators with like over 1 million followers, simply they don't have. They have to be in the weeds. How do you kind of reconcile that flip? And I kind of talked about it earlier, that flip between kind of the left and right side of the brain, that organizational, because that's something that we really do have to, the creators need to embrace, the ability to do both. How are you teaching people to do both?
Well, I think that a lot of people come into sessions, whether it's the calls or the individual coaching sessions, and they tell me I'm overwhelmed. I don't even know where to start. I'm overwhelmed. I don't know where to start. And they're sort of drowning in it. So I think the quick fix answer to this question is give me a structure, give me a process. And then the real conversation becomes, and how do I fuel that process, right? So I always say that my coaching is, it's different buckets. So if it's 20%, process and content calendar and systems, it's going to be 80% talking about your mindset and your creativity. So it looks a lot like 80% process and technique and strategy, but the truth of the matter is this is one small part, and this part, the creativity and the mindset, is everything that's going into that part. Yeah. So I think that, so to answer the question, the quick fix is to give people a process, right? To make it make sense, and then you get to the hard work. Right, of becoming a better storyteller, of using muscles you're not used to using before. But I feel like once people feel they have a structure, then they have a little bit more freedom to play in it.
Yeah, I find that with structure, that's great. I find with structure, what people are missing is they want results right away. Yeah. And they're not, when they're putting out content, they're not, like, I'm not agreeing with them as to what they think results are. To them, results are like views and engagement data.
Yeah.
To me, the result is that you
consistently posting.
Well, it's consistently posting, but that's not the benefit of it. The benefit of it is that you and I talked about this before we went on camera about Drake, right? So like Drake, when you look at the stat, like he actually only, I think maybe 15 or 20% of his music are hits. And so he has to literally create 80 to 90 pieces of music, like 80 to 90 songs before he gets a hit. And the benefit that the 80 to 90 kind of failures have is that he's becoming more experienced and a better creator.
That allow him to get to the 10 and 20 that
and
work.
And then his ratios go up. Then his ratios change over time. Like Valeria's ratios have changed over time, right? Because she puts in the work and because she's had so many failures, right? Those failures, first of all, you get knowledge and you get experience, but then you also become more comfortable on camera.
Yep.
Right? And so, yes, there are some cases when people are just like they're just naturally talented. I heard Justin Bieber. I know somebody who spent time with him, and he said this kid is like anything. If you put him in front of him, he can just he figures it out. Like he can figure out like how to play chess in 5 minutes and be like a grandmaster.
He's a savant.
Right. Yeah. And there are people like that.
Yeah.
But for the rest of us,
exactly.
It's about that constant iteration and creating content to get to the point where like Valeria is that now the ratio of content, like the percentage of content that'll succeed that Valeria makes will be higher because she's produced 15,000 pieces of content over time. I want to change gears a little, and I want to ask about your own creator journey, because before you and I even met, you had already amassed 24,000 followers yourself. So tell me about your kind of, because you're also coming from the position of a practitioner. Like you're not a, you're an amazing combination of like a trained academic. Like, you're highly academic in your approach to this, but you're also a practitioner. So you got to 20. So tell me about your own content creation journey.
So I think this is also what makes coaching and working with these content creators really interesting, because I completely empathize and completely understand. So when people say, I don't know what to share and I don't want to overshare and I don't want to have my face on camera, I felt all of those exact things that they have felt. Every single one of them. And I have had to get myself to a place where this starts to make sense to me, right? So in addition to kind of being someone who can help you unlock it, I'm also someone who's experienced it.
Sure.
So I'm now at a position where I do have over 20,000 followers. Or 24,000 followers. Yeah. But I'm somebody who, I do a lot of public speaking. I do a lot of large events. So when I'm able to speak to so many people, which is similar to the way that you speak to so many people on Instagram, right? But I'll speak to so many people, and I've been doing it for a long time. I have available to me this community of people who are actually interested in what I have to say, right? So it's almost like in real life content creation for me, because I take my audiences and then they come and they follow me online. So it's a really nice visual of how to create a community. But I do think I struggle with every single thing that every creator struggles with, and I continue to struggle with it today.
Right. Well, I was going to ask you, so in the beginning, when you started posting content,
yes, it was garbage and really bad.
But that's going to be universal with all creators. But like, how did you overcome that? So you had to overcome that. Yeah. I had to overcome it. I still overcome it. Valerio overcomes it. Yeah. How did you do it? So like, we talked about kind of the theory. We talked about how we, work with creators to get them over these humps. But I want to know how you give me like a personal story of something that happened with you. Yeah. At the beginning, when you were at 200 followers, and you're like, what's going on?
And I had like 27 views. Yeah. So here's the thing. So after having done this work for a while, right? So let's say I've been doing this work for a decade and a half, and it should be significantly less because I'm not even 15 years old. But anyway, after having done this work for a while, I've come to a certain place in my life where I have like an inner belief of what I'm capable of.
Right.
Now, whether that does not mean that I'm confident in every single moment of the day, but I have an inner belief in what I'm capable of, right? And I knew that there is something to this social media magic that I need to be taking part in. So for me, this broke down to two pieces of information that I share with people in my coaching sessions all the time. Mm-hmm. The first one is the North Star, right? It's why am I doing this? What is my greater purpose here? So yes, I feel super uncomfortable in this moment right now, but when I tie it to a bigger goal, right? I want to write a book. I want to reach more people. Okay, so in this moment, I feel kind of cringe and like this is weird and I don't like the lighting, and I can tell you every excuse in the book, but if I tie it to that bigger goal of what I want to do in the next 10 years, in the next 15 years, right? For me, then it starts to make sense. And there's another piece that is particularly important to me. I am someone who is driven by this notion of progress. I need to know that I am moving forward in some capacity. That brings me immense amounts of happiness, right? And when I feel that I am accessing my potential, right? So this goes back to that belief that I think inside I can do some good stuff. But when I feel that I'm making progress towards that, I can kind of overcome all of that noise in my head. Yeah. So it's really about like effectively having a really good inner conversation with yourself.
Has something changed for you? Has something transformed for you as a creator since you started coaching?
Yes.
Since you and I got together and started working together?
Yes.
So tell me what's changed for you after...
Well, I have a much deeper understanding of what this is as a business. So for me, my social media was always like an addendum to what I did, right? Because I do a lot of stuff in real life. But I knew that social media was an important part. I'm now realizing that it is the business. Yes. It is not a part of the business. Yes. It is the business. Yes. And I'm also understanding on a much deeper level this idea of creating a community. So those two pieces are kind of driving the way that I create content.
Yeah. I had a shift too, because my initial kind of theory on this was, we're going to start Creator Method, and I'm going to take my 3 decades of business experience, specifically in online media, and then I'm going to say, okay, well, and in at the time that I started this, Valeria and I had been doing this for 7 years. Now it's 9 years. And I said, that'll be my credentials. So I'm not actually going to be a content creator. I'm
Yeah.
going to be,
Oh, that's interesting.
Well, because
Yeah.
like all of my followers, like I have over 100,000 followers now, but when I started Creator Method with Valeria and the team about a year and a half ago, I only had like 65,000.
Yeah.
And the interesting thing is all 65,000 of them, they literally just followed me because I'm Valeria's husband, which is, but that's like a phenomenon that's very common among the husbands of content creators.
Yeah.
And I was just like posting stuff with the kids. Like I wasn't really creating content. I was just like living my life. And now what happened to me where I got really inspired, and this is actually like a cool thing when it comes to the community, is I started having these calls and reflecting on everything that had happened with Valeria. And I was just like, I could do that. Like I'm coaching people based on my experience as a traditional entrepreneur and as somebody who like informally coached Valeria to be like, oh, I should also do that.
Yeah.
Like so, and I started doing that, and now I mean I've gained like 35,000 or 40,000 followers. But now the followers, those 40,000 followers that I gained, no, those are different. Now those are people following me
for Gary,
and but for specifically for this, you know, for content creation.
Yeah.
So that's for me. I just realized that like this is actually attainable for everyone.
Yeah.
Right. So I think that was kind of the big revelation. I want to do some rapid fire stuff. Okay.
Okay.
So what is one tool to lower the negative pressure today?
So I always say that kind of continual voice in your head, like the tape that just goes and starts to run, the best way to get it out of your head is to write it down on a piece of paper. There's something scientific and neurological about getting it physically out of your head and onto a piece of paper.
Like
that
whenever
will remove
that negative pressure to talk.
So
like, to
if
write
it's
it
like,
out.
if it's 5 things that are bothering you, like I hate the way my voice sounds, my hair is horrible today, the house is a mess, and get all of that down on a piece of paper, and now it's gone. It's out of your head, and it's time to move on. So it's like the physical act of emptying your brain.
And that'll lower pressure. Okay,
Yes.
Next. What is one tool to increase consistency?
Okay, so
Consistency as a creator.
Yes. So the best tool I find for increasing consistency, the best tool I find for increasing consistency is to set the bar low enough that you can achieve your goal. So this is not about being extremely ambitious at this moment. This is about being consistent. So, right, the win is actually fulfilling your promise to yourself. So set that bar low enough that it's achievable, but that you still are able to keep your eye on that North Star.
Okay. What is one tool to create more joy today?
More joy. Okay, I have a lot, but I'm going to do.
You have a lot.
I have a lot.
I thought when you paused.
Well, this is what I do.
No, I understand, but that's the thing is like I felt like I was putting you on the spot, but then I realized, this is kind of what you do.
Yeah. Okay.
So
I think one thing to create more joy. Okay. So in the book, everybody talks about a to-do list, right? And we all have these huge to-do lists of what we have to do. And at the end of the day, you cross off everything that you've done. And then you're like, oh God, I still have 6 things left on my to-do list. What a pain. I can't believe I didn't get anything done. I say at the end of the day, you flip it and it's the done list. So instead of looking at everything that you've had to do, look at everything that you accomplished. So give yourself that joy of being like, wow, look at everything that I got accomplished today. So take it from a to-do list to a done list.
Why are we such assholes to ourselves? No,
I know
really
we're professional. We're professional.
But we're professional assholes.
Yes.
You know what it is? Like for me,
I'm really good.
When I look at my career now, I should sign up for coaching. You should coach me. Man. I do need your help. Like for myself, I will so concentrate on the things that are happening that aren't good enough.
Yeah.
Like if it's and not only in business, like in business and personal, like if I feel like I'm not being a good enough dad, like here's the interesting thing. So like even in the short term, on Saturday, I literally, and this rarely happens, I had hours of one-on-one time with each of our kids. Like I took Ben for a ride in my like classic car and we did like classic car stuff. I took Maxie for like ice cream and I literally watched a whole movie with him. I watched A Night at the Museum with Ben Stiller. I watched that with him. And with Jake, I took him for burgers and like he discovered this new burger place and we went there and then we went for ice cream and I really had a talk with him. And I get so much dad guilt as much as we talk about mom guilt. For me, it's dad guilt.
Yeah.
And the funny thing is that then the next day, I went, which was Sunday, I went for my time. So at 6 a.m., I was on my motorcycle. I was, doing my thing, like, just biker shit. And then And then it's funny because Sunday evening I started feeling this like negativity,
Yeah.
like before bed, like, something's not, and all day today, like on the Sunday night, I was like, I didn't do anything with the kids. I was out on my bike. I'm such a jerk. I didn't spend enough time with the kids. I didn't put them down. Like I didn't like sit with Maxie, our 7-year-old, long enough before he fell asleep. And I was like, wait a second. I literally the day before spent 14 hours between 3 kids doing one-on-one. Where's the skill? So why are we such assholes to ourselves?
Yeah, we're hardwired for it. I mean, I literally, like, that is the story of my life. I could have 5 amazing things happen to me and 1 crappy thing, and I will only focus on the crappy thing. And this is something I've spent a lot of time thinking about personally, and it's something I help other people with. But it's something in our brains that we're hardwired to do. So in order to overcome it, you have to know that you're exactly what you did. You have to know that you're doing it and then tell yourself another story about it.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it really is just as simple as like focusing. Like I think I'm gonna start like recording myself or writing it down. Mind you, I'm filming most stuff. I just have to go to my Instagram stories and go into the archives. I'm a pretty good dad.
You are.
Like I'm a pretty good entrepreneur. Like,
well,
cool.
I can attest. Your children are adorable.
So we had dinner last night with Ariel and Valeria, and Maximus came along, our 7-year-old, and you were very kind with your compliments.
Well, he was
today.
Delicious and sweet.
He is a delicious boy.
He was really delicious and sweet, and a testament to you as a father and Valeria as a mother.
Thank you. Well, I look forward to you meeting. You have to jump on a flight right now.
Yes.
But next time you're in town, you'll meet our older boys. And so that'll be a lot of fun. Okay. Another quick question.
Sure.
Give me a tool to grow without burnout.
Okay. A tool to grow without burnout is this. And it goes back to what we talked about a little bit earlier in the conversation. You need to recognize when you are depleted and when you are energized.
Yes.
So I want people to recognize when they have those energetic moments, and I want them to capitalize on it. I want them to build momentum in those moments because so much of what we're doing here is creative work. So you need to know when the creativity is happening and bank it. Really lean into it. Even if it's off your schedule and whatever it is, you are a creative being and you need to use those moments when the energy strikes. So recognize the depletion and lean into the energy.
Absolutely. I want to add to that from my own experience. In this business, the other businesses I had before this, like pre-2017, they were inconsistent at best. And anything to do with online marketing or tech or anything like that is inconsistent at best. But content creation is like 10 times more inconsistent than any other inconsistent business I've had. But it's only inconsistent in the short term. When I look at, let's say, if I'm studying the metrics of the business with the last 9 years, with Valeria as a creator, and I'm looking at the data in terms of like followers and views and the financial data, over 9 years, it's not only consistent, but it's growing and beautiful.
Right.
But when you're in the day-to-day, and this is something I still have to remind myself when I'm looking at the data, whether it's sales in terms of like our main revenue model is still brand partnerships, and now it's creator method and what we do there. But like when I look at the day to day and I see these peaks and valleys, I have to stop this like dopamine addiction that I have to the peaks and then this depression that I have in the valleys. And that goes for data too. And I talk to creators I just had a creator over at my house, with 500,000 followers.
Yeah.
And this person is upset about the fact that the data is low. Yeah. And I had to explain to him to say, you are going through right now just a very normal thing, and it's gonna go up and down. So I think what I wanted to add to what you were saying in terms of how to grow without burnout, I believe that a lot of the burnout is caused by the dopamine rush and the positive when you're at a high, and then the crash when you're at a low. Yeah. You have to tell yourself that this is the nature of the industry. Yeah. I'm telling everyone here, as an entrepreneur, I've been in business for 30 years. This is out of all of the inconsistent businesses that you can think of, this is the most inconsistent one. Yeah. In the micro, in the macro, it's beautiful. So you have to weather that storm. That's it for now. I just want to close with a few things. I want to reiterate that growth is both emotional and strategic. We have to be artists in all of this. I want everyone who's listening to this, whether you're a member or you're not a member, really examine your relationship with the pressure that you put yourself under. And Jessica, I really want to thank you. This is great. I just want to say that it's been such a pleasure to, when I first, you and I discovered each other, I was so happy to have met you, and we had decided to work together, and it's been such a pleasure to continue working with you. And like I say, you're in this specific field of mentoring and coaching creators, you were literally my only colleague.
Yeah.
Well, that's not entirely true. Rachel, obviously.
Yeah.
But in terms of the deep work that you're doing on a one-on-one coaching basis, to really the deep dives that you and I do, I've been really appreciating. So,
Me too.
so I thank you for that, and thank you for being here.
Thank you, Gary. This was awesome.
Awesome.